Good morning. Today, let us discuss 10th December 2015 newspaper. The first important event is about India-Pakistan resuming their talks. Let us see a brief history of these things. In 1998, the composite dialogue between India and Pakistan has come into existence. After the Mumbai terror attacks in 2008, India stopped participating in this composite dialogue. Once the Modi's government has come into existence, the terrorism became India's major concern, and Pakistan started stressing on the Kashmir. At the UFA meet, India and Pakistan agreed to resume talks, but when Pakistan tried to involve the Kashmiri Hurriyat conference, India has moved away from the talks. Now, recently in Bangkok, national security advisors of both the countries, the foreign secretaries, they met and they finalized the agenda. And Sushma Swaraj, the external affairs minister, on her visit to Pakistan to participate in Heart of Asia conference, the 10 principles of our 10 dialogue issues are being highlighted. These are called as a comprehensive dialogue process. So, what are the new in this comprehensive dialogue over the composite dialogue? One thing I can clearly see is humanitarian issues were added to the composite dialogue. And next is religious tourism is the second thing which was added. So, the 8 other things, they remain as it is as like the composite dialogue. And these two, humanitarian issues and religious tourism, these have taken an entry into the comprehensive dialogue. Now, we know that the Prime Minister of India is going to visit Pakistan in 2016 for SAARC summit. We can expect some more progress can happen with regard to Indo-Pakistan relations. On the other hand, there is an interesting development that is related to the Tapi pipeline. It stands for Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline. So, Turkmenistan has 4th largest gas reserves in the world. In this context, a recent fall in the crude prices and gas prices, it has severely affected the Turkmenistan economy. And added to that, the major exports of the Turkmenistan are to China. So the Turkmenistan needs to diversify its exports and also has to sell more of its gas to earn the money. And the pipeline has to move through the Afghanistan and Pakistan through the regions where there are huge security concerns. And the transit fees which Pakistan is expecting was too high. So that is the reason why, though India has signed a purchasing agreement, it did not go ahead with this project. The Asian Development Bank is actually financing this project. To what extent it is still interested is a question. But however, the governments, they wanted to take forward this project because of the energy security reasons. So in this context, if the project gets finished by 2018, more than 33 billion cubic meters of the gas is expected to pass through this, supplying the Pakistan, Afghanistan and India, so which can address the energy security concerns of our country. So this is a positive development. Now, again, let us see one more thing. So there is another pipeline called Iran-Pakistan-India pipeline. It has the similar issues, that is security concerns and also the transit fee issues. Now, here the India is being replaced with China. So that is becoming Iran-Pakistan-China pipeline. So hope the Tapi will not become the same way. So this is one thing. And next is, it is related to India-Japan relationships. Now, Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, is expected to visit India. Now, in his last term, Prime Minister Abe has proposed for India, United States, Japan and Australia's quadrant. So, this 4 quadrant is seen as a counterbalance to the growing China in the Asian continent. But however, India don't want to appear itself as against to the China, because India-China relations, they are supposed to determine the future of Asian prosperity. And if the tensions rise up between these two countries, it is not good for the India's development. So the growing relationship between India and Japan, it cannot be posed as against to the China in the interests of the India's development and India's trade relations with the China. So, Abe visit, it's going to bring in new fruits to India. So, if you observe the Japan situation now, Japan has huge excess capital, but however, the export market of the Japan is shrinking. You can see the big companies of Japan such as Sony, they themselves are facing a huge crisis. So Japan is going for almost 2 decades, a continuous phase of recession. In this case, it has to find the new markets. The excess capital which it has to flow into new investments. India is this capital starving, and added to that, the infrastructure projects in India can create a new demand for the Japanese industries. So the bullet trains, or else if you take Economic Survey 2014-15, revamping the logistic structures by focusing on the railway sector through private investments is the major focus, shall be the major focus to revive and to improve the economy towards the growth path. That's what it exactly talks about. Now in this context, the Japanese investments are very crucial to India. And added to that, India and Japan, they are planning to develop amphibious military aircraft. So this amphibious military aircraft can help for coastal surveillance in India, and also with the growing South China Sea, tensions in the South China Sea, it can also help the Japan. And East China Sea, you can see China and Japan has irritants on Senkaku Islands. Just try to see that, verify that the islands, etc., the names. And India's Act East policy, the only country which has strongly responded, that is Japan. So in this context, don't think that everything is rosy between India and Japan. One major irritant is related to the civil nuclear cooperation. So Japan is very much sensitive to the nuclear issues. As India is a non-signatory of non-proliferation treaty, Japan is very much hesitant to sign the civil nuclear cooperation agreement, because how the people of Japan will take it for consideration, that's what worries the Japan politics. The next one is important news is about Real Estate Regulatory Authority. Now let us see a brief background of this. In 2013, a bill was introduced in the parliament by the new PA government. What are the major provisions of this bill? Now, any person who wants to build an apartment which is greater than 12 flats or greater than 1000 square feet of area, he has to register himself with a real estate regulatory authority which will be appointed by the state government for that purpose. He has to submit the plan, and once the plan is submitted, it is not supposed to be changed. And added to that, what are 70% of the money which is coming from the buyers, it has to be kept in a separate account and shall be used only for the purpose of building that particular flat, which shall not be diverted for the other purposes. And there will be penalty clauses. It means a person, if he do not make or complete the project within the stipulated time he promised to the buyer, then he has to face these consequences, and he has to give the completion certificate to the regulation authority. In that way, the regulation of real estate sector was brought in by the government. The bill was introduced in Rajya Sabha and it was sent for the standing committee. The standing committee, what it has suggested is this. So, the commercial properties also shall be brought in under the real estate regulation bill, and covering of the smaller projects. And all the real estate agents must be required to register with the regulatory authority. So these are the three major recommendations of the standing committee. Now, the existing government has included the recommendations of the standing committee and approved this particular bill. Now, what are the issues in this bill? So, 70% of the money, it has to be kept in a separate account and has to be used for construction of that project. Now, with the soaring land prices, sometimes the land will cost more than remaining 30%. For example, if it crosses some 60% of the total cost of the project. So excess money has to be brought in by the developer to complete the project. It is going to escalate the cost of the project is one apprehension. And the other thing is, the land etc. is a subject in the state list. Then how come union is making a law on this particular subject is the question posed by the states. Because many of the states already have their own real estate regulation laws and the center's laws is not in line with the laws passed by that particular state governments. These are the two issues that are irritants. Now, M.K. Narayanan's article, it is about the recent changes that are occurring in the European society. You know that European societies traditionally stood for the civil liberties. Now, if you talk about European history, whatever the values today, constitutional values today which are there in India, they are originated from this Europe. Either secularism or humanistic values, human rights, fundamental rights, everything one or the other way. So they have their roots in the European history. Now, such a Europe that stood for the humanitarian values, its way of thinking is totally changing. You can see in the yesterday's newspaper, the right wing has won the elections in France. In the regional elections, right wing, Mary Le Pen's party, it has got the huge number of seats. Similarly, the Donald Trump United States of America, he is gaining or he is the front runner with regard to the Republicans are concerned. What is the major reason? So if you take geopolitical reasons, the attack on Paris, in the United States, the San Bernardino attack, both have changed the mindset of the people. Now, the countries are increasing the cross-border verifications, checks in Europe, and restrictions on the immigrants is all increasing in the Europe. So that is going to damage the entire idea of European Union. And on geo-economic front, the Greece crisis already has built the paranoia of pigs economies in the European Union. So these geopolitical and geo-economic events have reshaped the entire European thinking about the idea of European Union. So what are the consequences of this? So the European Union is under trouble. And if you see in the France recently, after the Paris attack, the president was given excessive powers, or we can say emergency powers of peacetime. So the power of the state is increasing to maintain the safety of the citizens. Once the power of the state increases, the police force, etc., can be misused against the liberties of the people. So, the Europe, what it stood for, that is the civil liberties, it is going against its own self in this mood of paranoia. So, the increase in the state powers, which may damage the civil liberties, is another concern. Now, the major threat is this. The idea of coexistence in the world itself is under question. Now, people of different regions, people of different religions can live together. That particular idea is coming under question. Now, if you take the Donald Trump's statements repeatedly, he says, even yesterday, he said that the Muslims will not be allowed into their country once he becomes the president. That is, totally absurd. And xenophobia or Islamophobia is growing in the Western world, which is not good for the growth of a peaceful, stable world. On the other side, if you see the growth of Islamic State as a phenomenon, is due to the miscalculation of the West itself due to intervention in Iraq and Syria. So if you recollect the previous articles, The growth of the Islamic State is majorly due to the failure of the state and its institutions in Iraq and Syria. And the second thing is related to the sectarian violence that is present in the Middle East. So in this context, Europe reacting in a different dimension, something which is not expected according to me. The next is anti-pollution. Now, I kept these two distant, unrelated articles on one page. The reason is this. One way how the Islamic State is using the growing technology on the negative side. On the positive side, how the growing technology has become a tool for the people to pressurize the state. In China, especially Beijing, the pollution levels are very high. Almost 10 times the permitted levels by WHO. In this context, the Alibaba group, Xiaomi, and the other groups are also the Baidu, that is social media in China, because Facebook don't work in China. So Baidu, these have brought in the mobilization of the people, and also they provided the instruments to the people to verify the levels of the pollution in the city and in the water and the food they consume. So because of this, people have become alert and they started increasing the pressure on the government, where government is taking the serious action. On the other hand, Islamic State is using the information technology to spread the hatred and also to recruit the people from the West towards its ideology. So it means technology can be used good or bad. So the two articles appeared important for me. Now the Trump. So already I have discussed to you this. The growing incidents of terrorism, these are giving a new impetus to the right wing. So the Republicans, if they are said to be conservative right wing in the United States, the Donald Trump, the person who is a real estate tycoon in the United States and billionaire, he was contending the presidential race, and he says that he will make the America free of Muslims. He is using his language, which is spreading the hatred across the people. So, in this context, previously whatever the remarks he made, they are questioned by the Democrats. Now, his party, the Republicans, they are questioning the Donald Trump and his views. However, certain conservatives, too conservative, that is, white supremacists, they are supporting the Donald Trump. The very bad thing is, he is the front runner for the Republican elections. So, America has to rethink on this particular issue. If not, America, if tries to grow on divide between the people, it is going to make it more vulnerable rather than a safe place. And the second thing is, if you see the recent article about Islamic State prophecy, Donald Trump was talking about a ground attack on the Islamic State. It is just like playing into the hands of the Islamic State. You can see Afghanistan war and what are the sufferings faced by the American army. The similar is case the Vietnam war. So the ground forces are not a solution. Obama administration, what it talks about is the air support for the people who are fighting on the ground. That is what is going to be the right strategy for America against the Islamic State. Now, agrarian crisis in Punjab. Now it is a regular article, there is no special points. But with regard to Punjab, I will say it this way. The drugs are growing as a major problem. Plus, the religion is strongly intervened with the politics. So the drugs, religion plus agrarian crisis, it is providing for a new test towards the Shiromani Akali Dal. So in this context, I can say it as an economic reason. So you can talk about new developmental models which are urban-centric and corporate style of governance. It is distancing the farmers from the state and its apparatus. And the religion. So if you can see the recent events in Punjab, which have given rise to the Khalistan movement. So this, on either side, a kind of discontent is growing against the democratic process in Punjab. That's what I can see. But this article is specifically concerned over the agricultural distress and the competitive politics that are playing. But however, I want to expose this particular scenario over here. So these are the important articles for today. Thank you very much and all the best.